So part 2 of the demonstration, as Areg outlined, we're going to continue with what throughput we were using, but we're also now going to introduce vulnerabilities. So on top of processing the 12 gigabits per second of HTTP traffic, we're going to introduce attack vectors against known vulnerabilities. So while this starts, let's first go over just one last time what was actually seen in that first part of the demonstration. We started off with no DPI engines enabled. We allowed those, essentially it would be 8,000 clients connecting to 160 servers, traversing through the firewall to generate HTTP throughput of 40 gigabits per second. We then went step by step and enabled the parts of the deep packet inspection engine, the first part being intrusion prevention. Every data payload is now being inspected for known vulnerabilities. We then decreased the throughput to 30 gigabits per second. We then enabled the malware detection, the final part of the DPI engine, and that caused the throughput to drop to 12 gigabits per second, but now every data payload is being inspected for malware and known vulnerabilities. Now let's go back to the network diagram while the next test sets up here. So now let's focus on the middle section here. For this part of the demonstration, we're going to use IXLoad attack to simulate 10 clients connecting outbound to 10 malicious servers. Now these malicious servers will be serving up content that could compromise the system. We heard in some of the slides there were talks about other scenarios of clients being attacked. We will also then simulate inbound attacks, because in the threat landscape you don't have to just worry about people attacking you inbound. You have to worry about both parts of that, so the client and the server part. That will also be another 10 attackers trying to compromise potentially vulnerable systems, 10 of them behind the E10800. We'll also want this all to happen while the E10800 is experiencing a traffic load. In the real world, your firewall is not just going to be put in place and only protect you against attacks. It still needs to be able to process legitimate traffic without an appreciable impact to it. So let's talk about the objectives for the second part of the demo. First, as I mentioned, we're going to still have the legitimate traffic passing through the E10800, as well as we heard about there being thousands of attack vectors inside of IXLoad attack. The requirements for these were critical to high severity, as well as a mixture of client-side and server-side attacks, which would be your client has a vulnerable piece of software, say Internet Explorer connecting outbound. That Internet Explorer gets compromised, has a vulnerability, say an ActiveX issue, or let's say inbound, you're hosting your own web server using Apache. Apache has a known vulnerability, and you get an attacker trying to take advantage of that. Okay, so the test is ready to begin. So once again, let's watch our throughput objective so we can see the throughput. Let's also watch our latency connections. But then, most importantly, let's also watch the attack counter so we can see the attacks as they run, as well as look at a distribution of the attacks we're running per vendor. As this is running here, you can see the rated throughput is still at 10 gigabits per second. We also have running now the vulnerabilities. And to let you know on the bottom left here, this is the attack counter. So the blue is what has been sent, and the red is what has been blocked. So as of this point, none of the attack vectors are succeeding. Now let's look at the SonicWALL UI here. Here's another look at the multi-core monitor. Currently it's showing 75% of the data plane is being used. Let's also take a look at the logging. And you can see here the attacks we are running are being logged. So on the screen right there are some IBM Lotus Domino. We also have HP web jetadmin. And this is going to refresh as the attacks are run. Also in the bottom right for everybody looking at the IXLoad attack view here, we're also seeing a breakdown of the vendors. So, we mentioned IBM and HP. Also being sent are vulnerabilities for Novell, Microsoft, Apple. If we scroll down, there's Adobe in there as well, and Mozilla. But as we've heard today, there's the next generation firewall, or in this case a deep packet inspection engine, does not only just need to protect you against vulnerabilities and malware, there's also going to be DDoS. So let's add in the DDoS part of this as well. Now, as Arg mentioned at the beginning, there's going to be sent 1.2 million packets per second of DDoS traffic. So let's start this up here. And while this starts, we go back to the network diagram. This DDoS traffic is originating from the LAN side, targeting potential victims on the LAN side. The attack will be run at about a gigabit per second, which works out to be 1.2 million packets per second. Also to point out, we selected a subset of the distributed denial of service offering. So specifically, we're sending SYN flood, UDP flood, and ICMP flood. These packets are going to be very small. They're 40 to 60 bytes in size. They're going to, the goal of these attacks are to overwhelm state tables, to overwhelm the product's ability to process the traffic. And let's see how that is going so far. So for the DDoS, let's look at the attack counters, as well as the let's see here, the attack rates. So what you're seeing on the screen, on the top is the attack rate. So that's showing the attacks per second. So that is around 1 million, just above, attacks being attempted per second. The below is a same sort of block diagram we looked at earlier, where you're seeing on the left the DOS attacks attempted, and on the right the DOS attacks blocked. Now let's go back and look at our throughput. Currently, IXLoad attack is reporting that SonicWALL is still processing 10 gigabits per second of that legitimate traffic. The time to first byte value, which is what we would want to highlight in the latency part, is still remaining around the same value, as well as of this point, SonicWALL is still mitigating all the vulnerability attacks. Finally, let's go back and look at the multi-core monitor while this is all going on. Now, as you can see, the data plane usage is staying around the same as it has. And as of this point, the DOS attacks have been running for some time. Looks like millions have been attempted, and they've all been mitigated so far. Now, one thing we would like to highlight is that it was nice to show some short numbers here. What we want to do to phase into the end of the demonstration here is to show you a screenshot of a test we let run. So this test, when we were running back through it one last night, we decided, hey, let's let it run overnight and let's look at what it looks like in the morning, right? Because a short period of time is interesting for the demonstration, but obviously you could be under attack for more than a couple minutes. And also for when we take you into the lab, I'll leave these two attacks running so that when we go in there you can see the physical hardware actually being put under load. So here's a screenshot of the test that was run overnight to give you some statistics as to what occurred. According to IXLoad, the test ran for about 11.5 hours. 28,617 attack vectors were attempted against known vulnerabilities. Over 48 billion DDoS attacks were attempted. And the throughput of the legitimate traffic, our HTTP sample, was just above, somewhere above 9.5 gigabits per second. The E10800 processed over 7 trillion bytes of data. So that is a lot of data, and when you're running at high throughput, that's going to happen. So, in closing, the one thing I do want to mention, both Arig and Brian alluded to, is that ICSA Labs and ICSA plan to continue to work together to develop an open, standardized security effectiveness and performance assessment methodology that can provide highly accurate and repeatable results. And we look forward to continuing to work with them on that. And as of this point, I'd like to hand this back over to Arig.
Thank you, David. Appreciate the great demonstration. All right, and thank you for everyone that has participated online and here.